Time was moving fast now, and I only had a day and a half to explore Şanlıurfa. So after a few hours on a bus, I set out to explore this beautiful city. Little did I know that I would find some of the coolest sights in Islam so far.
My name's Jack Rogers. In June of 2023, I decided I'd had it with normal life and set out to travel the world. 2 years later, I'm still going. I've seen some cool things in my time. I've swam the Nile, followed a matador around Spain, dived the world's oceans, and even returned to Iraq after 5 years away. Now I'm off on my next expedition, an 18-month trek through some of the world's most fascinating pilgrimages. My journey will take me to 12 countries as I walk in the shoes of religious pilgrims, ancient traders, and soldiers who blazed these trails centuries ago. This isn't just another trip. Unlike my first journey, I won't be walking the earth aimlessly. This is a chance to walk with purpose, to trace the footsteps of those who move for faith and survival. These routes carry stories, and I intend to find mine among them. I've never attempted anything like this before, but after 2 years of discovering what this world has to offer, I'm ready to take the plunge into some of life's deeper meaning. I'll be tested, physically and mentally, but I know in the end, it will all be worth it as I become a Wayfarer. So I've made it to Şanlıurfa, also known as just Urfa. I've encountered no Englishmen being here, which is actually kind of nice. Getting a lot of stares from the hat, but that's okay. I'm headed to check into the hotel because I got here early, and then hitting the ground running, headed off to a pretty important spot in Islamic mythology and culture, so really looking forward to that.
The city of Şanlıurfa is about 2.5 hours west of Diyarbakir, and it's rumored to be the birthplace of one of the world's most important prophets, Abraham.
So I'm on my way to this site, and you can tell as I'm walking through the city streets, some of them are quite narrow. And down in Mardin, they will tell you, oh, we're the only city in Turkey that's like this. And that's really just kind of not true, especially in southeast Turkey, where a lot of this old Ottoman, pre-Ottoman, pre-Seljuk architecture is, and it's preserved, and they've got strict preservation laws for it. But the difference is that in Mardin, it's one city, and it's all just kind of compact, and the new Mardin is a separate part from the old city, whereas cities like this one here in Urfa, you've got the old city and everything's expanded around it. So I guess that's kind of the difference there.
My first stop is one of the city's most important sites, Balıklıgöl, called in English Fish Lake. It was in this lake that, according to extra-Quranic tradition in Islam, God saved Abraham from being consumed by a fire. The story emerges from the debate between Abraham and Nimrod as catalogued in the Quran. That's as far as the Quran goes on the story, but the legend continues. As a result of Abraham's struggle and rebellion against Nimrod, Nimrod threw him from the top of a mountain where the Urfa castle now stands into a pit of fire. As he was falling, God commanded the fire to remain safe for Abraham, and the pit that once contained fire was then filled with water. The water saved Abraham's life, and the wood that was fueling the fire was turned to fish. There is no mention of this story after the debate between Abraham and Nimrod in the Quran or the Hadiths. Even so, it has taken root in Islam, especially here in Urfa, making the site a regional tourism destination. It's even illegal to swim in the pit or harvest the fish, as they are considered holy. The legend doesn't end there, however. According to the legend, Nimrod's daughter jumped in after Abraham, believing in him and the power of his God. The site where she fell was then filled with a lake. While this story sounds great as a religious myth, it's probably not true. There's no record of this legend occurring before the early 1900s, and it's likely that it was invented by the people of Urfa. That said, it may not have been entirely an invention. According to Jewish traditions, Abraham and Nimrod did get into a debate regarding idol worship and the construction of the Tower of Babel. And while it's entirely likely that Nimrod did want to burn Abraham in a fire, the original source of the myth states that Abraham escaped from the city of Ur. That translation has sometimes been misinterpreted as Abraham escaped from the fire alive. But as the Jews steadily disappeared from Urfa, ultimately disappearing entirely in the early 1900s, that myth took on a distinctly Islamic persona.
So behind me, you can see clearly what I was talking about earlier, where you have the old city with that kind of Mardin style architectural look. but then you have all of Urfa behind it that is expanded out from that city center. Whereas in Mardin, that city center is the city, and Old Mardin is located off somewhere else, kind of like that bit of Urfa over there. But here, I mean, you can even see it over here. It just expanded out from the city center right there. I'm going to go in this mosque in a minute, but right as I walked up to it, it started prayer time. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but I just didn't want to be rude and interrupt them there. So I'm going to go in a minute.
Not far from the mythical pool is the Mevlidi Halil Kami, and it stands as one of the city's most important mosques, both for its beauty and its enduring role in local worship. It was built in the 1800s on top of earlier religious foundations, and it blends Ottoman and regional architectural influence. It has an elegant dome, slender minarets, and a tranquil courtyard where prayer and daily life intertwine. The mosque remains a living center of devotion, busy at every prayer time filled with the sounds of recitation and community. It sits beside the sacred cave of Abraham, which I'll explore on another day, and the mosque itself has its own deep significance, a place that embodies Urfa's legacy as a city of faith, where centuries of worship continue seamlessly into the present day. Because of its location beneath the Urfa castle next to the cave of Abraham, and not far from the pool where Abraham was saved from the fire, it's a popular tourist and pilgrimage destination, attracting tons of visitors every day, every year.
So Şanlıurfa is actually a great place to learn about some extra Quranic Islamic traditions, because there are extra Islamic traditions just like there are in Catholicism and Protestantism and things like that. So one of them is the idea of Abraham's cave, which according to an extra Quranic story, Nimrod, who was the king of Babylon, said that all the boys should be killed, similar to the story in the Christian Bible, and Abraham's mother fled to a cave, gave birth to him, and raised him there to avoid the retribution of Nimrod. And that's actually right over here, according to tradition. So it's a pretty cool thing to see, especially considering that is the same, according to Islam, the same Abraham that Christian and Jews believe in. Now that last statement matters, where I said that they claim it's the same Abraham that Jews and Christians believe in, and that is because Islam says that they believe the same as Christians and Jews, but they just believe that a lot of the books have been corrupted over time, whereas the Christian belief, specifically as it applies to the warning in Galatians, does not agree that Islam and Christianity worship the same God, which is why I throw the word claim in there as it pertains to Abraham. All that said, that to me is not a claim, right? Islam does believe in the books of Moses, the Torah, the book of David, the Psalms, a gospel called the Injil, which is a bit different than the gospel Christians believe in, and of course they believe in the Quran. So if they believe in the first 5 books of the Bible, then it is the same Abraham. Now, the extra Quranic story is, takes that in a different direction, but to say that it's a claim is not entirely accurate when it comes to Christian and Jewish beliefs, because if it's in the first 5 books of the Bible, it is the same guy.
The Cave of Abraham is actually located in the same complex as the Mevlidi Kami. I just didn't visit it the day before because 1, I needed something to do on my second day, and 2, there were a ton of people there. Not unlike today. The visitor area to the cave is actually pretty small considering it's divided between men and women's sections, so I only get to spend a short amount of time in there taking it all in.
And right next to that cave is this building here, which this is an office, but on the other side of the office contains a visiting hall for a holy cloth used by the Prophet Muhammad, a strand of Muhammad's hair, and a imprint of his footprint, looks like in clay. Clearly they wanted to, when they made this mosque and area, wanted to place Muhammad next to Abraham, just as kind of a symbolic gesture. And I have no doubt, actually, that stuff is his, just because of the era and our ability to preserve things, which explains why there's people going from mosque to cave to that visiting hall as a religious experience.
Next on the itinerary after the Cave of Abraham was to visit the Urfa Castle, which overlooks the entire city. It's just a short walk up the stairs behind the Mevlidi Halil Kami, and if you want, you can even stop for tea on your way up, which I did for the fantastic views.
The Şanlıurfa Kalesi, which is that right there, is a castle that, like the walls in Diyarbakir, is so old that no one really knows who laid the first foundations, estimated to go back to the Bronze Age. What we do know is that over the subsequent millennia, since it was first established, or the foundations were first established, it has been built and rebuilt and renovated and restored by the various empires and countries that have taken over this area. And this castle was here before the Cave of Abraham was discovered. So there's not necessarily a tie between the two, and the Cave of Abraham is an extra-Quranic Islamic belief, which came long after the castle was first founded. Now, once the Seljuks came in, and the Ottomans, or the Rashiduns rather, and then the Seljuks, then eventually the Ottomans came in, clearly this took on some sort of mythological, theological, spiritual tie from the Cave of Abraham being so close to this castle. It gave it a sense of religious and governmental authority, which is why, of course, the mosques were established right there underneath the watchful eye of the castle, because it gave that synergy of authority in the region and in Islam in general.
Like some other castles I'd been around in Turkey, this one was under active renovation. A lot of times we forget that when we renovate or restore something, we're actually replacing the original work, whether it be stone or art, with new material, doing our level best to keep it contemporary with the time it was made. This cemetery in the castle's shadow is a great example of how hard we work to make new things look old. Most of the graves here are actually from the 1900s or even the 21st century, but they all have that same look and feel of the old graves and tombs you can find throughout the country. Heading back down the hill from the castle, I decided to check out an old madrasa that was nearby to the mosque. Of course, had I known that it actually sat right on Fish Lake, I would have visited it yesterday, but you know, you live and learn. Or at least you live. A madrasa is an Islamic education institution, and Turkey used to be filled with them. Within these walls, students once studied math, science, and Islam, from the Quran to the Hadith to the various schools of thought of Islamic jurisprudence. But when the Ottoman Empire fell, Ataturk, the first leader of the Republic of Turkey, banned all the madrasas, instead ensuring that Turkey was officially a secular country. In some cities, the madrasas turned into cafes and shopping centers, but this one, being so close to Fish Lake, mostly serves the mosque that's within its walls, although there are a few shops. When I arrived, daily prayers were still going on, so I just waited outside for the imam and the worshippers to finish up. Once they were done, they all emptied out and I had the mosque all to myself. Given Şanlıurfa is important in Islam, it's unsurprising that you can find mosques all across the city, even built into the walls of the bazaars. Of course, the mosques were probably here first, and as the bazaars sprung up around them, they attracted a few more visitors and provided a great place for men to step away from their shops for a few minutes to participate in their religion.
So that's it for this week on the Wayfarer expedition here in Turkey. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single thing coming to you from the adventure across the world. I'm off for several hours on a couple of buses to my next city. So that said, see you guys on the road.